This is part 2 of my review of Hagerty's Festival of the Unexceptional 2022. Don't worry if you haven't watched part 1 yet, there's no complicated plot going on here, so you can watch the first part afterwards and I'll put a link at the end. I shot a bunch of footage as I walked around the show. I'm going through it on the screen and talking over it as we go, and then I'll edit out all the dull bits and that's the video. I'm not covering every car in the show. I still filmed lots of great cars though, so let's get into it. Let's start with these Opals. There's a couple of Opal Monsters there. It's rather smart. Actually, it looks black, but it was in fact a really dark green. You might be able to pick that up. Yeah, you can sort of tell. Really lovely colour. And there was a silver one as well. No Vauxhall Royales. I'll have to get mine sorted out and maybe take it along next year. Not that it's particularly unexceptional, they were always quite rare. The silver one was parked next to this Night Rider Pontiac Firebird. It is a Firebird, isn't it? Not Camaro? Yeah, Firebird. Complete with LEDs in the nose that weren't flashing, disappointingly. They hadn't done up the inside, but I don't blame them for that. There's quite enough small buttons and fiddly things going on inside one of these as it is. While we're talking about big Vauxhalls, this Cresta was one of the oldest cars there, I think. A little bit older than the usual Festival of the Unexceptional run, but no complaints about that. It's a magnificent thing. Into Italian cars now. This Giulia Super was really rather magnificent. These always look at the back somehow like they're made of fiberglass, but I don't think they are. Look lovely. UK spec right-hand drive version as well, very rare. Another red Alpha, this 164, yeah, V6 one. Even had its bonnet open so we can admire the beauty of that Busso V6 engine. Look at that. Manufacturers don't bother making their engines look beautiful anymore. They just cover them in huge bits of plastic so it looks like the car's powered by Tupperware. Another Alpha, an Alpha Sud TI, I think, quite a late one. And there are a couple of examples of its successor car as well, the Alpha 33, both of them I think fairly basic 1.5s. Rare to see these basic ones as well. Still in Italy, I love this Lancia Appia. I had a drive of an Appia, a later one than this. This is a Series 1. I haven't posted a video about that yet, but I will. It's a fantastic thing. They're so beautifully made. Had a chat with the owner of this, it was really nice. Another owner I chatted with was of this. This belongs to Chris Haining, who is the chief sub, I think, of What Car magazine, and a really nice guy, and I love this Rover. 2.5 V6 version with this fabulous velour interior. Looked really handsome, and he let me have a sit in it, and I didn't want to get out. Another nice looking V6 actually, so beginning of the covering everything in plastic era, but you can still see the intake manifolds and plenty that's going on. Another Rover 800 I admired was this coupe. Leather in this one, of course, which I think was standard, certainly a common spec for the coupe version. Nice looking cars these, and very cheap still for what they are. Real class. A Renault 21, that's a rarity. These famously came in 4 different wheelbases and a choice of transverse or longitudinal engine. This is the 1.7 rather than the 2 litre, so it's front wheel drive with a transverse engine, but you can see there's lots of room under that bonnet for mounting the engine round the other way if it's the 2 litre that's shared with my Renault Espace. Oh, and look, that dashboard, really interesting dashboard architecture of this era of Renault. I rather like it, although people were sniffy about it in the magazines at the time. Another quick Renault, this Aventime. Nice spec in that blue with the cream interior. Look at that. How space age is that? It's a magnificent thing. I really like these. Might have to have one for a bit. This Land Crab was a bit special. This early Austin 1800 pre-facelift. Acres of room in it, just huge amounts of space, and this ultra simple dash. It was probably not entirely popular in this class of car. It was this Agonis being purist about minimalism. Looks pretty awesome 60s now. Another Honda here, this 4-door Civic. These are pretty little things. And somebody brought a brand new McLaren that's disappearing with its tail between its legs. It didn't really fit in. This fitted in, Sarah Crabtree's Brown Morris Ital. It has a name, but I can't remember what it is. Oh, Ivan, I think. Don't really do card names. There was another Ital as well, this silver one. An up-spec one with vinyl roof and all sorts. So what's that, an HL? Maybe an HLS? HLS, an early one. Triumph Dolomite as well. There was a Sprint somewhere, but I think I didn't film it. This is just a regular Dolomite. What's that going to be, a 1500 or an 1850? So plenty of BL cars there, as you'd expect in a show of this nature. Look at that, great seats. Copy of Michael Edwards' Back from the Brink book. It's a bit of a classic in its own right. Another Triumph here, this 2000 TC, I think. Yes. Look very smart, this. There's something about Triumphs, they look slightly cobbled together. It's something about all those windows, and they always have a slightly allotment shed feel to them to me. I don't mean that in a nasty way, there's just something about design coherence. This was restyled by Michelotti, of course, this version, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's not weird. An exception will be this Acclaim. This is a top of the range CD model. Lovely interior. Good cars, Acclaims. They drive really nicely. This Toyota Cortina is pretty awesome. Look at these wheels. They're amazing. It's in superb condition as well, and has the trophies in the back to prove it. Nice marina there behind it as well. This belongs to a chap I know off Twitter called Phil, and I didn't get to meet him, and that's a shame because he seems like a really nice guy. And it's a very nice car too, a Senator 3-litre CD, top of the range, looking lovely in this green colour. These are great looking cars. An MG Metro here, looking very good in racing green. I've got a soft spot for MG Metros. They have brilliant interiors. I love the grey velour with the sort of red piping. They look really smart. I bet they're a hoot to drive. My first car was a 1300 Metro. Here's another MG, a Maestro, the 1600, the early one that nobody wants, which is probably a little bit harsh. Again, you know, lovely interior, smart looking car. I think the 2-litre that succeeded it was apparently a great deal better in many ways, but these have the voice computer and all of that kind of thing, and the funkier early dash. It's very smart. It's got all its original stickers in the window and things as well. Look at that interior, that herringbone tweed. Lovely, nice. So much nicer than the 1300L that we had when I was a kid. Here's another Maestro, a Van den Plas, or no, I think it's a Mayfair, all the way from the Netherlands, along with this Espas hand-painted in green, another recent Hubnut test, because I was too slow in getting mine back from London for him to drive. And here's the man himself. Actually, it's not him, but it is his Ford Falcon, in company with a bunch of other cars, including this rather amazing Toyota Century, complete with curtains. A really tidy looking Toyota Tercel 4-wheel drive estate, really funky and really rare now. Most got worked to death and rusted away. This smashing Phase 1 XM belongs to Russ Wallace, who's a really brilliant car illustrator. This lovely early Volvo 345 belongs to Sean Hudson from the Morsels and Motors channel. Looks great. And this Fiat Panda belongs to Jim McGill, who's huge on Twitter. That's probably enough name dropping from me. I don't really know half of these people, you know. I just follow them on Twitter and like their cars. A Mark II Polo. My second car was a Mark II Polo, but that was a C Formula E, and this is a top of the range Ranger with these kind of roof bars, and it's got a really nice sort of tweedy interior and the 1300cc engine. This one looks really tidy. I got a soft spot for Bread Van Polos. They're kind of basic, but they're really well nailed together. It was a bit of a revelation after the Metro, if I'm honest. There are a couple of Avengers too. These two estates, one in this kind of aqua metallic and another one in a more foresty green colour. And there was a yellow GT saloon as well. Quite fond of Avengers. My aunt had them when we were kids. I love this Bedford CF. I think Matt from Furious Driving test drove it a while ago. It looked great. It looked like a proper builder's van, just washed. The guy who owned it was fun too.
I put some optional extra switches on there too, which all do something.
Oh,
the spotlights did until I blew them up this morning.
They're really smart interior on these.
Yeah.
You get your wood trim and that nice binnacle, and they're really
nice
classy
metal
van.
trim. Yeah. Oh,
Does your yellow light work?
Yeah, hang on.
Oh, look at that. There were some other smart cars as well. Everybody kind of ignored the E-Type. Nothing against E-Types, and this was a really nice one, but, you know, lots of shows have E-Types. This Porsche 928 was a bit more rare and looked very smart. I'm not sure black would be my choice, but it did look the part. I'd love a 928 before they get insanely expensive, or am I too late? This 924 was nice as well. I like these Mercedes C126 SECs. Was a nice spec as well, with the beige interior and the red. But if we're talking about colours, then the winner for the day has probably got to be John Harper's Rover 2600 here in its amazing avocado green. Beautiful car, this, in fantastic condition. A favourite at shows, and John's a really nice guy. I met him at the restoration show, although he had a different car that day. In fact, he was underneath it on the stand. Look at that interior, fabulous. I must get my SD1 going and share that with you some more, because that's an awesome thing as well. Not in quite such good condition as John's though. A couple of other SD ones as well, facelift ones, 2600 and this Vitesse that made a very nice fruity noise as it was departing. You couldn't have a Festival of the Unexceptional without a Ford Cortina, even if this one is the 2-litre gear. Ford was so good at marketing. I mean, the Cortina wasn't a brilliant car to drive by any means, but it just looks the part, and they were so clever. You know, the different levels for the different grades and aspirations. That Windsor velour seating is great, similar to my Granada. It just looks really smart. I know it's a bit later than the Mark 1 Cavalier next to it, but Cortina somehow just had the edge on Cavalier in terms of looks and showroom appeal, even though the Cavalier was a much better car to drive. This early one does look pretty smart though. Speaking of Fords, here's another one from the other end of the spec hierarchy, this Orion 1.6L. A fantastic survivor that's just been used as a car. It now belongs to a guy called Connor, who I know from the Beige Autoshite forum, and it's an absolute glory. It's got the odd little rust spot and stuff, but generally it's survived fantastically well inside and out. And the inside is a particular treat.
It's actually quite weird.
There's Connor sat in the back, giving me a lift back to my own car at the end of the show. It's strange being driven in the back of your own car, isn't it? It's not something happens very often. Maybe that's a service that we could offer.
Yeah.
That's just so gloriously brown.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too.
Good to meet you.
Thank you. You too.
No problem.
Driving the car was Dave Wovham, who I've known for years, also from the Beige Forum, and he came in this wonderful Innocenti Small, based on a mini platform with a 3-cylinder Daihatsu engine. This is a small 500 SE, which means it's a large small based on the longer mini van and estate platform. Glorious brown velour Alcantara even interior in this. Such a special thing. Dave's got a great collection of cars. I once bought a Rover 75 off him because it had a tow bar and it was cheaper than buying a tow bar. This Yugo 45 looks awfully familiar. I think I've driven this car. If it wasn't this one, it was its twin, right down to a very similar reg plate. A friend of mine bought it in Chichester and drove it to Edinburgh about 12 years ago, and I did the first leg of the journey, which was only about 6 miles or something, but it was a hell of an experience. They're Fiat 127s underneath, so they drive really nicely, but they're shonky as anything. And this one hasn't got any less shonky over time. But look at that interior. Sort of super cheap plastics. It's like being in a Karamak bar. Great fun though. What a survivor. Let's pause with the cars for a moment while I reflect on something. I think the Festival of the Unexceptional is a fantastic show and concept, but I think if I had one bit of feedback for the organisers, it's that they're missing a trick with, maybe it's just one category of award, that celebrates cars like this Yugo and Connor's Orion, and there was a wonderful 1976 Renault 5 that I featured in the first part of my show report. They're by no means in show condition, they're not shiny, they've not been restored, they've not been preserved in showroom condition from 30-40 years ago. They've just been kept going as a car, as transport, and they're just survivors that have somehow made it through and avoided scrappage schemes and the economics of old cars. I think it would be fantastic if that was something that the show could celebrate more than it does. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Anyway, back to the cars. This is a rarity, this Datsun Cherry sports hatch, or I can't remember exactly what this shape was called. Coupe? Yeah, anyway, whatever. These were everywhere, but super rare now because they weren't afraid of rotting. This looked really nice. I mostly covered Citroens in the first part of this review, but there were a couple of notables that I missed. This DS, actually it's not a DS, it's an ID19 or an ED if we're being French about it. That look fabulous, not least because of this Venetian blind in the rear window. That's a thing that's died out that I wish would come back. Fabulous Citroen interior as well with a single spoke wheel. And this CX Athena as well carried on that. You can see it carried on the single spoke wheel thing, and also the lovely French interior and the swoopy lines. I do like a CX. This Ford Scorpio next to it was handsome as well, as was this Audi 100 C3 Avant, one of a few at the show. These are magnificent looking things. I don't understand why they're not more collectible. They're historically interesting because of the aerodynamics and the looks and the 5-cylinder engines. In fact, I don't understand why I haven't collected one myself. This Ford Puma belongs to Sonny Jim off the beige, who's the chap on the left with the hat. And it's the nicest Puma I've seen in ages. It even had wheel arches and everything. I mean, technically, I think this late car is a bit new for the show, but the model isn't. It's a real 90s classic, and they've become very rare because the rust gets them. Great to see. I've never actually driven one, but apparently they're great fun. So I did film every single car in the concourse, but this video is quite long enough as it is, and to be honest, quite a lot of them aren't really my sort of thing. So I've picked my top 3 and I'm going to feature those. If you really want to hear what I think about all the cars in the concourse, positive and negative, then howl at me in the comments and I'll post that up as a little bonus video later in the week. Love this colour, Reynard on this Princess 2200 HLS. Friend's got a Princess this colour and I've driven it briefly and I really liked it. I'll try and do a road test of it at some point. Love this. I saw this the day before the show actually, just driving about. It's Italia 90 Panda, complete with those wheel trims. Are they not just the best wheel trims ever? Fantastic. I'm a big fan of these Giugiaro Pandas. This was my favourite car in the concourse, this Simca 1501 Break. I think these are lovely. I'm a bit of a Simca fan anyway, but these are particularly fine, and this was an absolutely lovely one. I love the elegant, simple interior, and the best thing about these is the boot space with these rails, and it's finished in wood, and you've got a wind down rear window and a drop down tailgate. There's a windy handle there for getting the window down. It's super practical, and you can sit on the tailgate and have a picnic. The Rancho is the same actually, which is not made by Simca, it was made by Matra, but Simca engined. This fantastic roof rack. It is an absolutely glorious thing to get about in. They were never common, but they weren't that rare. Ending on a high though, here's last year's winner. It's John Coupland's Proton Black Knight, a car that was fairly unloved when it was new and is frankly a bit niche even now. Hagerty, to their great credit, displayed it on the rotunda at the Royal Automobile Club, which is normally home to some really exotic metal. And I love them for doing that because in my world there's room for exotic metal, but there's lots of room for Proton Black Knights and Maxis and Montegos on moon discs and all of those things. If you want to know a bit more about the car that I turned up to the show in, the BMW E30, and what it took to get it there, then I'll put a link down here and you can watch that next. Thanks for watching.